So Legion has been making some moves in the gaming laptop market over the past few years. If they could invest similar resources into revamping their awful looking and sometimes broken website, users would have enjoyed a much better online experience. But anyways, today, I'm bringing you guys, as promised, our full performance review of this new Legion 7i for 2024. This is meant to replace the Slim 7i from last generation. Now, I've been using this thing for the past few months. It's been through a few BIOS updates, which honestly hasn't really affected performance by all that much, but I'm here to give you guys the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's get into it.
When elegance meets value, Montech's Sky 2 GX cases ensures your components can breathe properly with its innovative mesh front panel design that's easy to access. The included premium AX140 ARGB fans provide a sleek aesthetic boost, expand to eATX, load up to 11 fans, enjoy vertical GPU mounting, and level up your cooling game with support for up to 360mm radiators, and stay connected with a plethora of USB ports, including a fast USB-C port. The elegant airflow focus case has evolved. Check out the new Sky 2 GX down below.
The first thing I need to address here is pricing and availability. Now, initially, when this thing was launched, there were just very limited SKUs, especially getting hands on this Glacier White model was a bit challenging, but now they have expanded the options. The pricing for this laptop is also all over the place. The base model starts at $1,700, which gets you a Core i7-14700HX with 16GB of RAM, a TB SSD, and RTX 4060, powering a 16-inch Quad HD 240Hz display. The next tier comes with a Core i9 CPU that gets you 4 extra threads and slightly higher clock speeds. You also get twice the memory and an RTX 4070, so that's about a $600 premium. But if history has taught us anything, never buy a Lenovo laptop at full price. So right now, this SKU is sitting just a shy below $1,900. If you're set on buying this Glacier White model with the same specs, it's going to cost you an extra $20. But if you want the high resolution 3.2K 165Hz panel, that's going to set you back around $2,500. But again, that's retail price, so don't pay that, just wait for it to go on sale. Now, on the positive side, I do appreciate the design language of the Legion laptops. They've stayed pretty much consistent over the past few years, and that's not a bad thing. It's simple with very less branding other than this Legion logo that's tucked right over here. And this Glacier White model looks absolutely gorgeous, but I feel like it could use a fresh coat of paint, at least to make it somewhat unique compared to the previous generations. Maybe experiment with different textures. The top aluminum lid features an extra anodized layer that gives it its white color. However, it oddly feels more like plastic and can attract fingerprints, though these are less noticeable compared to the gray models. Now, after 3 months of use, I haven't noticed any signs of wear or tear except for the bottom, which has become quite dirty, but that is easily just wipes off easily. It's worth noting that this is based on a relatively short usage period, so this could change over time. The build quality is solid. The hinge opens with just one hand and it opens up smoothly, and it also goes all the way up to 180 degrees flat, which is kind of neat. However, I should mention that it does exhibit a little bit of wobbling, and it also creaks sometimes, especially when I'm opening it from this direction, which is a little bit annoying. I don't know if you can hear it. Yeah, so something to keep note of. Now, when you look at the overall form factor, it's very similar to the previous generation. The Z height measures approximately 0.78 inches, which is 19.8 millimeters, and it weighs less than 5 pounds, or roughly 2.24 kilos, which is pretty impressive considering the powerful hardware packed inside. The included power brick has been reduced in size. It's a 230 watt power supply, and it connects to the laptop via proprietary connector, although you can still use USB-C with up to 100 watts of power delivery. It also has rapid charge, which tops up the battery to 70% if you use this adapter in just 30 minutes. So that's kind of neat. The interior space follows the same recipe as the previous generations. You're still greeted with a full-size keyboard along with a dedicated section for the larger arrow keys. There are a few hotkeys within the function command, so if you hit Fn plus Q, that cycles between different performance modes on this laptop. Fn plus R switches the refresh rate from 165 Hz to 60 Hz if you want to preserve battery life. Function plus U also turns off the rear connecting LEDs, although in this case it's just HDMI. And then function plus spacebar cycles between different lighting effects, which can be customized through Lenovo's Vantage software. The power button also functions as a fingerprint sensor, and the LEDs surrounding that light up in green when you log in, giving you a nice visual cue. Lenovo's keyboard has always been one of the best on the market, and this doesn't disappoint. You also get RGB, like I mentioned earlier, but on this Glacier white model, I just decided to disable it because for the most part, on this white surface, the lighting just doesn't shine through the keycaps. It just clashes and it looks weird. So I just ended up turning it off, and it looks quite nice without any RGB. The trackpad has a glass surface, which makes navigation pretty smooth. However, the integrated left and right buttons feel somewhat cheap compared to those on the Zephyrus G16 and even the Razer Blade 16. I also found this trackpad to be just a bit too sensitive, often registering unintended clicks when I'm browsing through Chrome or just doing regular idling tasks. I wouldn't classify this as an A-tier trackpad, probably give it like a B+. Now, the port setup is pretty loaded on this laptop, so due to the improved cooling system for the CPU and the GPU, Legion had to shuffle around some ports with this generation. So on the rear end, you get power in HDMI 2.1. On the left-hand side, you get a USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A port, 2 USB-C Gen 2 Type-C ports, with one of them supporting Thunderbolt 4, and a headphone jack. On the right-hand side, you get another 3.2 Gen 1 port, an e-shutter switch for the webcam, Type-C 3.2 Gen 2, and a full-size SD card reader. Now, keep in mind that this isn't UHS 2 compliant, so transfer speeds, especially from my FX3, were quite slow. Also, the Type-A ports are limited to 5 gigabits per second instead of 10 gigabits per second. For 2024 laptop, it's a bit concerning, especially given the investment you're making to ensure future-proofing. So this is what the webcam looks like on Legion 7i. The quality is pretty good. Lenovo is using a 1080p sensor, and the microphone sounds decent, so it's perfect for online meetings and things like that. I do love the inclusion of that e-shutter switch, so if you just want that extra layer of privacy, it's right there. It's just a flick of a button, and you don't have to worry about it. So good stuff. The speakers are average as expected given their bottom placement. The trebles can sound harsh sometimes, and the bass response is quite limited. It seems like Legion has been lagging in this area for the past few generations. Now, some users have reported some crackling noises or buzzing noises coming from the right-hand speaker, but I haven't experienced anything on my sample. But when you shift gears to this display, you're just greeted with a gorgeous 16-inch 3.2K IPS 165Hz panel, which also supports advanced Optimus and G-Sync, so the gaming experience is superb. The color gamut is really good as it covers 87% Adobe RGB and 98% B3. Keep in mind that brightness levels are slightly lower compared to the Quad HD 240Hz option, but it's still pretty good for outdoor viewing. Now, I am aware that the industry is moving towards OLED technology with high refresh rates on gaming laptops, and that's not a bad thing, but you have to realize that moving toward that technology will take a dip on peak SDR brightness performance. Now, color accuracy and black levels are obviously better on OLEDs, but if you're into visual arts, this 3.2K option is not that bad. I actually comfortably was able to edit my photos and do a little bit of video editing, so it's pretty good. But if all you care about is gaming, that 240Hz Quad HD panel is an attractive option, and it'll save you a lot of money. Now, if we take a closer look under the hood, you'll have easy access to the memory slots. Maximum supported memory is 32 gigabytes. The primary NVMe SSD is right over here, and the drive speeds are pretty fast. Our sample got over 6.7 gigabytes per second on read and close to 5 gigabytes per second on write. Now, if you look at the cooling system, as I mentioned earlier, Legion made some improvements to ensure optimal heat dissipation by creating a few sealed chambers inside. But how does that affect real-world use with both the CPU and the GPU? Well, let's start with the i9-4900HX processor. There are 4 power modes baked into the 7i, with extreme mode pushing close to 100 watts to the CPU. And the temperatures are pretty tolerable, except when you look at noise levels, it just sounds like a jet fan. Actually, louder than a jet fan. This is probably one of the highest noise levels we've observed on a gaming laptop, period. But if we switch to balance mode, for instance, you can cut back some of that noise, but then again, the CPU temps do tend to shoot up, resulting in warmer surface temperatures. So just be mindful of that. Weirdly, performance modes on this laptop, especially with the noise levels, just varied a lot. It isn't constant, and that can be quite distracting. The RTX 4070 packed inside this 19.8mm chassis has impressive power levels, up to 122 watts in extreme mode. But like I mentioned earlier, that does come at a cost of noise. The temperatures are not too bad under heavy gaming sessions, so it looks like part of that cooling system improvements have paid off in this particular use case. So it's pretty clear that Legion is pumping a ton of power into the 7i, which is a great thing for performance, which I'll talk about in a moment. But there is another drawback, and that is the significant hit it takes on battery life. Even though this thing packs a 99.9 watt-hour battery, It only manages to get close to 9 hours of light load test, which is shorter than Lenovo's Yoga Pro 9i with a smaller battery and Intel's much efficient Meteor Lake CPU. When you hit it with a medium load, it tends to fall even shorter than the Framework 16 laptop with a Ryzen CPU and an 85 watt-hour battery. Heavier workloads are just terrible on this laptop, but I kind of expected that considering the amount of power it consumes. So you'll need to be closer to a plug if you're considering this laptop. Now here comes the best part. If you're looking for the fastest performance on a thin 16-inch gaming laptop that's strictly CPU focused, look no further than the Legion 7i because it just flies. And that directly correlates to the amount of power it consumes. It's even faster than the Razer Blade 16 with the exact same CPU, but you can see that it consumes a lot less power. I have to say, much of this improvement stems from the increased thread count and Intel's enhancements to this refreshed architecture. So for STEM-based applications such as Autodesk, Blender, Houdini, MATLAB, this chip is pretty awesome. There are a few exceptions with Adobe Premiere Pro, since the 7i can only be equipped with an RTX 4070, which, while still being a great GPU for content creation, isn't anywhere close to the RTX 4090 equipped Blade 16. DaVinci Resolve Studio conveys the same story as well, but you'll notice how much faster that Framework 16 laptop is, and it's partly due to AMD's secret sauce with the RX 7700S GPU. It doesn't even stand a chance against the 4090, but at the end of the day, these laptops are still great for creative-focused tasks, guys. But what about gaming performance? Well, again, this laptop doesn't disappoint here as well. It's still a beast at 1440p, and in some cases, it does give the Blade 16 with the RTX 4090 a run for its money. Moreover, I feel like you're getting a lot more for the dollar compared to something like the Zephyrus G16. If frame rates is what you're after in a thin gaming laptop, look no further. I also should mention, once again, that power plays a crucial role with GPU performance, and Legion isn't cutting back any of that, which is great. But remember, it does come at a cost of higher noise levels. So that's the story with the Lenovo Legion 7i. I really like this laptop. It's super fast. I mean, when you're editing videos or just doing any sort of general tasks, it's super fluid. I love the aesthetics. You get a lot of ports. The display is great, but there are things that kind of threw me off a little bit. And the first thing is, of course, that hit you take on battery life. And the second thing is definitely the fan noise. It just gets super loud, especially if you're setting it to extreme mode. You can tone it down to performance mode, but then again, that's sort of inconsistent with the decibel levels. So if Legion can maybe push a firmware update to address that, that would be great. On that note, thanks so much for watching. Let us know what you guys think about the Legion 7i. If you already picked one up, I'm curious to hear about your thoughts and your experience so far. And if there are any improvements that they could do to the chassis, because it's kind of starting to look a little bit dated to me. Again, curious to hear your opinions. I'm Ibra with Hardware Canucks. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Oh, and don't pay full price, but also spend responsibly.